everybody, and welcome to another edition of Regenesys Talk. And my guest today is Advocate Kevin Malunga, who's academic head at the School of Law here at Regenesys. Just a little bit of background. He really is one of South Africa's most respected legal minds, a champion of ethical governance, of constitutional accountability, and access to justice. And he brings a deep experience from public institutions and the legal academy. And under his leadership, I'm pleased to report, Regenesys Law School is really shaping a new breed of legal professionals equipped to defend democracy, uphold human dignity, and compete in an increasingly changing digital and global legal landscape. So, Kevin, a very warm welcome to you. And maybe let's start with a big canvas question, and then we can talk a little bit about the law school later. But how difficult is it to rebuild trust in public institutions? Because if we don't have that, the work that you're doing kind of amounts to nothing at all. It's all underpinned by trust, isn't it?
Good afternoon, Jeremy. Thanks a lot. You know, the past maybe 15, 20 years have been a bit traumatic to South Africa's psyche in terms of many narratives such as state capture, the commission that investigated that and its findings, and more recently, what's coming through with the Malunga Commission and the allegations of ministers and chiefs in the police, etc., being in bed literally with criminals. So there's a lot to be done in terms of the ethics of the nation, as it were, or the way people do things. The fact that people now are familiar with the fact that to get a driver's license, they have to pay bribes to somebody. To get a roadworthy test, they have to pay a bribe. It's become part and parcel of the way people do things. And of course, at the same time, there's always talk about the rule of law. So there is an increasing trust deficit, if I can put it that way. Every day it seems to get worse, where people abdicate or run away from using state facilities, whether it's moving away from public health, if they can afford it, or public schools, if they can afford it. They have their own security guards in their homes instead of that function being capably done by the police in an efficient country that subscribes to the rule of law. So my sense is that this will only happen if there's a reset and a rejigging of the legal system for people to understand that the legal system works, that there are consequences for errant behavior, usually in not just in the public space, public or private. I like Singapore as an example, and I often mention it, that they have literally cleaned up both public and private sectors. Actually, most of their investigations there are more private sector because the public sector is so clean. So I think it's ultimately it will go to political will, having the right people at the top, but also having a legal system that really respects Section 9 of the Constitution, that everyone is equal before the Constitution.
And you talk about the reset.
Yes.
So what does the reset mean, and how do you start that?
The reset, Jeremy, is really going back to the goosebumps era of 30 years ago. So now, the Constitution ironically, we're speaking at a time when the Constitution is about to turn 30. So there's going to be a lot of celebration parties,
but
events.
Introspection as well, one hopes.
Yes, but I think it should really be introspection as to what have the successes been and what have the blind spots of a constitutional democracy. So it's one of the most lauded, they always call it one of the best constitutions in the world. But is it true that indeed all are equal before the law and have full equal protection of the law? Do we have selective prosecution in South Africa? Why has the NPA failed so dismally, the National Prosecuting Authority, in the past few years? Despite having good budgets and despite having very well-trained people who I hold in high regard, it barely makes a mark in terms of prosecutorial dents, and getting people who have been allegedly, been involved. Sometimes the so-called cut and dry cases don't get far. So you have a situation where there's a lot of talk and very little implementation. And that's just been the history of the South African government since 1994. People are very good talkers, but very bad at implementation.
So let me suggest to you that the reset is only going to happen if there is a change in thinking among young legal minds, the next generation. Kevin, the generation that you're helping shape. So how do you need to alter the way in which you're teaching young legal minds in order to meet the challenges that you're articulating? Because if that doesn't happen, we're just going to have a continuation of the status quo. Absolutely, Jeremy.
One of our main areas of focus as a so-called disruptor, a new institution that, albeit we have full accreditation from the Council on Higher Education and South African Qualifications Authority, we have focused on disrupting the sector in a way that we build a holistic individual who understands ethics, who does not believe in something for nothing. Because one of the biggest headaches in terms of the things that you've alluded to earlier on is that people have no qualms about getting something for nothing. And there's that terrible saying that the fish rots from the head, and it has been rotting from the head, both in the public and the private sector. And we try to build an individual, an LLB graduate, who is legally astute, who knows their law, obviously the bookish knowledge, that's the emotional intelligence.
Oh, that underpins everything, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So we don't compromise on that.
But there's another layer to the cake.
Yes,
Yeah.
they also must have emotional intelligence. So we've had some very bright advocates over the years, attorneys, etc., best in their classes, who had high-flying legal careers, who have been struck off the roll because they have, dipped into trust funds. They have been caught soliciting a bribe. I won't name names, but it's very easy to find them with the Google search. And a lot of those people would have, if they had been taught differently, maybe 30, 40 years ago, would probably have gone a different route. They're very bright.
So how do you teach that kind of new behavioral ethos that you're referring to?
So, and of course, we put that into the classroom. And in our activities and in our mock sort of trials and whatever we're going to be doing that we have. But also, it's deeply infused in every study guide that the student gets, that is put on the electronic portal, which is known as Regenesys in this particular case. And they get a chance then to understand the consequences of their behavior over and above. Yes, you can get a degree. Everybody can get a degree with hard work. But then it goes beyond that. Career, and you've seen, it's not immune to the law. You've seen across the pond, what happened to the big boss at Fox News, who was harassing his staff members. It goes on and on. Look at Prince Andrew, the current dynamics over Prince Andrew and all that he has lost. All that he has lost is not so much about him being an intelligent or a stupid man. It's an ethical lapse, someone who failed to uphold the values that society, and I suspect the international society holds dear. And of course, most of it is that, we want people who are able to, especially the emotional intelligence part, and then of course what's also known as SQ, the social quotient, EQ, and of course we also want them to think about being physically well. So that's one of the unique aspects of Regenesys. We also talk about physical wellness. That you're fine, you have all this money, but if you don't take care of yourself,
it's the work-life balance.
Yes.
So you've spoken about the ethical side of it, which I absolutely understand, but it's the SQ which is also interesting. It's being socially conscious. Often the legal profession, many great lawyers have that quality anyway. How do you teach that?
I think many of them start off as humble, bright-eyed, sort of ambitious.
Until the money starts coming
Until
in.
the money starts coming in, and then they get bombastic and arrogant and rude, and all those epithets that people love to associate with the legal profession, which shouldn't be. And I know, Jeremy, the people often label the journalism profession with their own whatever, and people then resort to other outlets. Some resort to gambling, to alcohol, to stealing, whatever floats their boat at a particular time. So we're trying to make people understand that, look, this is actually a calling through which you can get a comfortable life, quality of life, but it's also a calling in which you can change lives. And I've seen how you can, in some of the roles that I've had, how you can actually use the law to open up opportunities for people who otherwise wouldn't have, the most vulnerable people in society, that the law can protect them. Literally, the Constitution, as I said, everyone is equal before the law. So from the billionaire to the pauper, both must be fully protected by the law. And that's hopefully what a Regenesys LLB graduate can come out with.
I'm going to take you in a completely different direction as we close this interview.
Yes.
And I suspect that this is something that you might have to come back and talk to me about in a little bit more detail.
Yes.
But what about the role of artificial intelligence in the legal profession, and how is your law school getting to grips with that? How much of a threat is it? How much of a boon is it?
It's both you really have to do a SWOT analysis, literally. The strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats in this particular notion. And ironically, just today, OpenAI has decided that ChatGPT will not be used for medical and legal advice officially. But the reality that we're in, Jeremy, is the fact that this is a train, an oncoming train that will not be stopped. So it's a question of how we embrace it in an ethical fashion. Because South African courts have recently shut down, I think, 2 or 3 instances where people used AI to draft heads of argument. So I think I have a problem with it when it's a form of cheating. But
as a form of assistance,
yes, but as a form
it can be invaluable.
Yes, as a form of assistance, used ethically, open cards, I don't think there's a problem. Because right now, all the searches that we're doing online have an AI option. I'm sure you've noticed. We've noticed
it's inescapable, isn't it?
It's inescapable. So I think there's a way, and of course, just today again, in California, they had a resolution somewhere where they said that police reports that are written by AI can be allowed, provided there's a declaration that this was written by AI. So I think a lot of the problems, we have a problem where someone wants to cheat the system and pretend, almost like plagiarism, where you want to pretend that something is yours that you didn't generate. That I have a problem with. But I think in the future, because AI is already generating fantastic minutes for us in meetings and so forth, initially I was also very skeptical, but that thing, Yeah. So I think it's really about it's an honesty issue, it's an ethics issue, and I think if adequately declared in future, I don't think there will be a problem. But I think where it's a form of cheating or a form of trying to go past the system, I think we'll definitely have serious problems in the future.
And as I said before I put that question to you, I think that is an entire conversation on its own.
Absolutely.
Kevin Malunga, come back and visit us. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jeremy.